SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
In a market where content is king and player preferences evolve by the minute, staying relevant is no small feat. In today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming sector, we sit down with Bernd Baumert, the Director of Games Production and Operations at Greentube, to go beyond the glossy trailers and bonus features and explore the real mechanics behind game development. From ideation to execution, how does the studio ensure each release not only reflects current player trends, but also anticipate what's next? We examine the critical role of cross-team collaboration, how market-specific nuances, especially in the US and Dutch sectors, shape game design. And, at the heart of the discussion, is Starlink Jackpot, Odds of the Gods 2, a bold sequel aiming to raise the bar on player engagement. Bernd walks us through what makes a sequel work and why character-driven storytelling remains a cornerstone of Greentube's experience. Bernd, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And I love talking about slots. It's how I started in this industry. I used to work on slot beats for about 2-3 years, and everything I did was about slots. So having this conversation is very refreshing for me and going back to the early days, which is cool. But before we jump in, I want the audience to know a little bit about you. So let's forget about the serious questions for now and let's just focus on something a bit fun. You're the Director of Games at Greentube.
Yes.
Can you just kind of give us a brief introduction of how you got to that role and what your favourite video game is of all time?
That's a very good question. And I'd like you go to the video game part and not the gaming part, because this is, in the end, also my history.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was 6-7 years old and I got my first Nintendo and playing the first games. And I think from video games to board games, which is something I really enjoy, this made me good at my job of thinking of how would a player think, what would a player enjoy, hopefully, and bring that to our game production process. I started in Novomatic, so the land-based mother of Greentube in 2010, but I was always partially involved with Greentube. So over the course of the next 12 years, I think every step I've taken, like in every game, a good level, it's a good grind, as we say in the World of Warcraft days, it gets you to the level where you then qualify for the next one. And I think this is what I did. This is what brought me here in the end. And what I try to bring to the games of Greentube, of thinking what would the player enjoy. And I can come back to my foremost favorite video game. I almost forgot that one. I'm a big fan of the old Nintendo of Rygar. That's a very classic one. When we talk about mechanics, introducing the game is a little bit difficult, but it's Max Payne with the bullet time.
Max Payne's a great game.
Because it brought something new to gaming itself. Good platform levels. As soon as we talked about where you can throw some birds, taking a simple concept of let's destroy a castle, but make it really, really fun. And I think this fun part is key to a lot of players.
Yeah, no, perfect. Good suggestions. And also, nice World of Warcraft reference. I like that one. Big player myself. I think I started...
Same here, off tank. So, yeah.
Nice, same.
So I know what pain is.
Yeah, nobody who doesn't play off tank knows what pain is until you play it. It's like you said, it's a grind.
But it helps me maybe also a bit talking about my job now is you have to keep the attention of everything going around, as in making sure your teams are in a good order. So I think at some point raid experience helps you in dealing with larger teams.
That's actually perfect. I've never heard a World of Warcraft reference to how to work in the gambling sector environment. That is a snippet I'm using for this podcast. Perfect. I'll just start video games to you for the next 20 minutes. But we do have an agenda to get through, and it's an interesting one. And I think before we do get into it, I think we need to go behind the curtain a little bit when it comes to the game development at Greentube. And so can you just kind of walk us through the kind of typical process that you go through when you do create a game? And like I said, it's from its inception to its release.
Yes. So first of all, the first part of, if you call it research and development, is the research. So we do the research on what's currently good in the market. Luckily, Greentube has its own B2C brand, so we know what the players like. We look at reports, but we also have our own creativity. We have game designers, and the fun part is that we work with so many studios, many from within the Greentube company, many within the Novomatic side, some are outside. And I think this brings a good mix, a good flavor set to the Greentube portfolio. So once a game idea is pitched, we have to make sure that this is really, this addresses a broad audience. Yes, niches can be created, but we try to really have something for every particular player type. Everybody can enjoy something. Some would like the more feature-rich games. Some would like it more fruit games. Let's call them even nostalgic games. But with this good mix, the idea comes in. Then we do, of course, the idea comes in with all the bells and whistles and the math and the first mood board, if you want to call it that. Then we evaluate if this is something that we would like to have in our portfolio, or how can we tweak it. Then, of course, always legal check from trademarks, then until the very end to compliance, QA testing, and then we go out into the particular markets. Some markets take a little bit longer because they have longer lead times in regards to licensing, but overall, we're always going for a rather global approach with the game.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. How important is it to ensure that kind of internal silos are broken down in terms of creating new games?
Ideally, you don't have them. And having silos in any production process, not just gaming at all, is necessarily a good thing because this adds time. And time is something of the essence in this industry. Time to market is key. So luckily, we don't have that many silos. I always call the area that somebody entrusted to me to take care of and to run like a well-oiled machine. We're all working together. It's a value creation chain. So just because you're at the end of it or at the beginning doesn't make you more or less important than someone in the middle. So we're really working that transparently, so that we know, by the way, this game is coming, so QA is prepared, so that we know delivery is prepared. Those are really the parts that is a really nice thing to watch, that I can say we don't have that many silos. There are always some silos in any industry, in any company, but not to the extent where I would call this a hindrance in anything.
Mm-hmm. And when developers and studios create these new games, obviously some games are tailored to different markets because different markets have different preferences, different player trends. The UK, they're obsessed with fruit slots. They always have been, and I think always will be, to be honest.
Yes.
And Greentube, you've done a lot in the past few years of focusing on the US. So when expanding into that market, how crucial is it to kind of understand that local nuance and the player trend in each? And can you just enlighten us on any differences?
It's very key to focus always on the player in that particular market and what they like. Just because something worked in one ocean doesn't mean it has to work in the other one. This is especially very key being a European-based company coming with a European background. We know which games work in Europe. And this is a good thing for me that I have my experience in land-based. So we knew that, okay, if we just take the European games, put them into the US, the chances are not super high that they will work. So we had to adjust. We had to pivot. And look what is needed there. It's on average, maybe a US player would like to have something big happen every 30 to 40 spins. Then you have to factor in online the average session duration of a player. So that we have things like buy bonus. So that this is, you can see what the game is like. Graphic styles. You mentioned fruit games before. Yes, they do also work in the US, but you have to give something on top, like maybe a jackpot, a hold and spin mechanic, free pots in the future that we'll add. I think this is what then really makes so you have to season the portfolio a bit then to fit into this particular market. And it's not comparable to Europe at all.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not comparable. And I'm coming from this from kind of, like I said, UK European mindset. So I'm a bit oblivious to the US in that sense. But just one follow-up question to that. Obviously, and again, I don't know the answer to this, so that's what I'm seeking. The US is broken up into many different states, yes. And it's such a big landscape, a big continent, the US. So in each state, are you seeing differences in player preferences, or is it more kind of broader demographic than that?
For me, in the data that we see, it is a little bit more broader because our partners are live in every state. So if we work with our partners, all of them, they're live in each state. It's more difficult to get all states at the same time at the starting line, as I said. Some of them have, for their own reasons, and some of them are really good, longer timelines in regards to licensing certification. This is something we have to factor in. And so I would say if a game works in one state, it usually will work in the others as well, because it will be pushed on the same platform with the partner, and then it gets put out everywhere. We, of course, are looking more into bespoke games for partners, to have their particular logo on the screen, on the character maybe. So this is something we do, but then we will play this out, hopefully, in all the states. So I would say it's a broader demographic, not really this state by state difference. And if it's a good game, it usually works in every state.
Okay, perfect. No, that's interesting to know, because I thought, because we always say one size doesn't fit all. I thought because we have so many different states and how big the US actually is, there might be some differences. So to know it's more of a broader scope.
You will have every now and then in one state, you will have one game that's a little bit a peak, let's say. But overall, it's good that we have such a strong portfolio also that we can go with a package and say, by the way, this will work across all those states. This will also make it easier for our partners to launch our games because they can trust that they will work in every of the states.
Perfect. We're going to jump into one more market and just one more question before we hit a ad break. And that market is going to be the Dutch market.
Yeah.
I see by the little smoke there, this is going to be an interesting one. You've just entered the market. It's a complex market. What challenges has it presented to you?
And the reason why I smiled when I said the Dutch market is that it was indeed a challenging market. And I do like a good challenge. So that makes me smile a bit. Maybe it comes back to the first question that I like what I played in World of Warcraft. But what was really the keys in this Dutch market is it was challenging because it was a rather compressed timeline to get in, to get everybody compliant. But what really helped us is our history, that we had a company in the Netherlands that knows the content, that we had the Dutch classics. We had the experience from land-based that we could draw on and say, okay, what did work in this particular channel? How can we do the same thing in online? And especially with our own company and the Dutch classics, I think it prepared us really, really well. So yes, it was challenging. It was compressed. We all know how certification compliance checks work, as they should. But this adds to time to market. And then it's more about expectations management internally of saying, this is the situation, this is what we have to deal with, but trust us, we will get us there.
Perfect. Bernd, we're going to go AFK for a quick 30 seconds, roll an ad break rolls, and then when we get back, we're going to talk more about Starlink Jackpot, Odds of the Gods 2, which is your recent sequel. For the audience, we'll be back after a quick ad break, and stay tuned.
Join us for SBC Summit Malta from the 10th to the 12th of June. With over 75 exhibitors and more than 250 expert speakers, our expanded agenda covers all aspects of the European gaming industry. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Welcome back. I'm still here with Bernd Baumert, the Director of Games Production at Greentube, and like we referenced before the ad break, we're going to be talking about Starlink Jackpot, Odds of the Gods 2. Which is Greentube's sequel to their previous title, Odds of the Gods. And Bernd, can you just inform us why you made the decision to do a sequel? And how does this game pay homage to the original? Which is, it's hard to do sometimes. In the video game sector, I feel like they do it a lot better than, say, the film industry. But how do you pay homage to the first installment and then also improve on it?
You brought up two very good industries to see how it can work and maybe not work to do a sequel, because if the recipe worked once, we have a tendency to believe that we can replicate that and do it better and will address the same audience. The game worked so well that we said, okay, we're gonna try it. And I think this is the first move is be this brave to say, you know what, we're gonna build on this success, which is in the end what you want, because you want to create a family of games, of something that a player can recognize and say, I had a very good experience with this game, I will try that one as well. Then the next step is finding out what worked well in the first game. Why did they like it? Was it the graphic style? Was it some of the mechanics? Usually a combination thereof. And what can you bring into the new one? So changing the graphic style would not have been probably a good fit. So we said, okay, let's keep the graphic style. But what can we do in regards to features? Can we add there something that, yes, they remember this from the first one, but they might also enjoy it in this case because we have seen this particular mechanic work in a different game. So that this is then something that says to play, you know what, I like maybe the classic up to the first one. If somebody else would like to play a little bit more with features, they would then play the second one. And I think this is how you can try to steer a portfolio and create the audience for your games.
Yeah, no, perfect. And I'm going to ask you, I asked you what your favorite video game was at the start. What's your favorite sequel in video games?
Double Dragon 2. That was maybe a little bit too quick, but I spent a lot of time playing with that game. I did play Assassin's Creed 2 as well, but there are so many games currently out there, and it's really about creating the family. So if you liked God of War, the first one, and then you expand to the second, to the third one, you want to feel like what you did in the first one, but then make it something extra. Do it with a story, do it with a new mechanic maybe. If it's too repetitive, then the success of the game will not be as expected. And we all know how people maybe sometimes talk about games like Assassin's Creed. Yeah, it's always crawling up, jumping down, doing the things. But what can it do with story? What can it do with a new theme? This is what we do with our Diamond Link family. We know that the Diamond Link family is really sought after. So we have the Mighty Elephant, but then we add new games. And therefore, everybody can find something in the family that speaks to them. I think this is the art form that is game design and game development, to do exactly that, to have the audience then for your families.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you one more noticeable game-worthy title, is Borderlands 2.
Yes, absolutely. Played that one. Always played with the siren. It's always good to loot and then get out of the fight. Use the Facebook. Yeah, that's a very good pick. That's a very good pick. I should have named that also as one of the most favorite games. But this is also where a game blends humor with storytelling, with the ability to play with friends. Yeah, good memories just came up. Thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just getting you excited for Borderlands 4 later this year.
Yes, I need to get some vacation when that comes out.
Perfect. Okay, now away from Borderlands and back onto Odds of the Gods 2. Can you just walk us kind of through the title? What should players expect from the game? The features, how they're triggered, and key symbols to look out for?
First of all, it's the theme itself. So, Odds of the Gods, Greek, Roman mythology of gods. Then we have as it's in the name, the Starlink Jackpot. So this is a game family where we have more, and this is the addition to that, where you have to collect the stars. That's why Starlight, and then to the corresponding jackpot, and then you will get it. And you can get this more than once in the free game. We have the cash collection. Cash collection can happen in the base game as well as in the feature. I mean, there's a particular symbol, the lightning bolt, that will collect all the cash values on the reel set. This can happen on reel 1 and reel 5. And if that happens, this is also where we see the bolt there behind me, because that's our rope roadmap when the game goes out. And this is something for the player that, okay, maybe I did not yet get into the main free games, but I saw the lightning bolt coming in, and I saw the cash collection. So this is then one of them. And then we have the free games, of course. And in the free games, you can work your way up with an additional multiplier. There is a free games, but there's like a bonus wheel that can get you more multipliers and more free games. So this is more on the feature-rich side for a game. But this is something I strongly believe that players will enjoy, because it is very appealing graphics, still fresh, and also something always going on.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience, the core of any slot title or any game, to be honest, is player engagement. Everything has to be player first, player focused. It's the bread and butter of making a game. What do you believe makes such a big hit when it comes to the games and player engagement?
You have to give a player something they recognize first to catch them. What's like the first, don't want to say, like, what's the first hook? What gets you first? What interests you? Because the game design, the mechanics come at a later point, so it has to be aesthetics first, which from a development perspective comes at the last stage, maybe, where you do the fine-tuning of graphics and is everything there. But this is the first thing the player sees, like, that looks interesting. I like that character. Or I like what the character might imply that there is more winnings. So this is one thing for the player engagement. Then, of course, since you talked about video games as well, it's a little bit about character design to make them, which can also be a thin line to walk on, depending on the market. We talked about the UK market, where we have to make sure that the pictures are not too child-friendly. So this is also then something where we really take care of during the development of saying, guys, we get it. Yes, this is fun, but we have to appeal to a broader audience and not make and ensure that one market just simply falls off the cliff because we chose a wrong color or a design that was too child friendly.
No, it's a good response. And one of the things I always say, and it comes back to the sequels as well, within the slot sector, players are creatures of comfort. They know what they like. They very rarely deviate to another sector or to another game, so when you are creating that sequel and you're focusing on the engagement, focusing on what they already know, what they already understand about the game, like you said, you have that hook of what they first see, but it's also kind of replicating what they know, what they love and what they're comfortable with to trigger that success, which is interesting.
And I can add to that for the players usually know the game sometimes better than the game designers and developers. Trust me on this one. They will be definitely so focused on the game and the experience they had that they want to relive this, and this is what we then try to facilitate.
Perfect. And we are very close out of time, so one final question, and I'm hoping you can give us a little sneak peek, because you've already mentioned a roadmap. So can you kind of give us an inkling to what's coming next in Greentube's upcoming portfolio?
I can tell you that we will always try to enlarge and enrich our game families. So we'll have a piggy prize, coins or plenty, with an extreme bet mechanic, which is basically 2 games in one. So you can get rid of all the lower paying symbols and just pay the high paying symbol plus the feature trigger. So this is then what the player prefers at that very stage. And on top of this, we're always adding mechanics to our portfolio. So 3 pot games, we got a couple of lined up with different mixture of mechanics to, as we said, flavor it for the player to their different likes. And I'm really, really looking forward, also theme-wise, from Western themes to more of a genie-based game again with magic lamps and so on and forth. So really looking forward to the next months.
Perfect. Sounds like an interesting roadmap and one that we'll definitely keep an eye out here at SBC. Bernd, I could talk to you for hours just on gaming. We'll get back. We'll just do a whole gaming podcast.
Yes, we should.
We'll take it from there. Thank you for joining us today, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you want to find out more about Odds of the Gods 2, we'll leave links in the description below. But apart from that, I've been James Ross. This has been iGaming Daily. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.